93. This is Amun Asha Renew from AshaRenew.com. Today I will be discussing the theorem of anti-space, aka the mysteries of Pluto. Currently, Pluto is in 5 degrees Capricorn. When Pluto is in 5 degrees Capricorn, not only is it being influenced by the planet Saturn, which is the ruler of Capricorn, it is also being influenced by Jupiter, which is the first decan of Capricorn. So now we have the influence of Jupiter and Saturn upon Pluto. If we want to add numerology into the mix from the number 5, we understand 5 to represent the energy of Mercury. So now we have 3 planetary influences on the planet Pluto currently, which stays in a particular zodiac sign for about 30 years. This is why Pluto's effect or influence is considered generational, as it lasts an entire generation. So let's do a further analysis of the planet Pluto with this 3 planetary influence. So first we understand the planet Pluto to represent the idea of transformation. Mercury represents the idea of communication. Jupiter represents the idea of expansion, whereas Saturn represents the idea of compression or contraction. So we have Pluto here seeking to transform anything it touches. So because Pluto's influences are Mercury, Jupiter, and Saturn, we understand the transformation is taking place in our ability to communicate. But not just any type of communication that allows us to expand our awareness of others, especially other cultures and other ways of life, otherwise other truths, because we have our own personal truth. Then we have the universal truth. So Pluto is seeking to transform communications to better reflect the universal truth. As the universal truth has been compressed. Because the universal truth has been compressed, we tend to believe that our truth may be different than someone else's truth. simply because we may have a different way of life or a different culture. But at the bottom structure of all religion is a similar path. And this is what Saturn brings to us. That compression leads to the center point. When we arrive at that center point of universal truth and begin to communicate from that center point, we begin to experience a transformation. This is otherwise known as the black cube or the cube science, where the center point or the planet Earth is symbolized as a black cube. So when we study the black cube of Mecca, we must understand that we are not just studying the culture of Islam. We are studying a universal truth, a universal science that is timeless. And the more we seek that center point of timelessness, we are still able to transform and transmute ourselves into something much greater, not necessarily greater as in better, but something that is more refined, something that is more subtle, which goes into the development of our various spiritual bodies. Because you can say Pluto represents our ability to travel to the underworld. Because the lord of the underworld is known as Pluto or Plutos. The underworld just refers to the subterranean planes. The subterranean planes is otherwise known as the heaven of the old gods. The heaven of the old gods just represents the old deities, the deities that are pre-religion. All of the deities that existed before we had a science called demonology, before we ever had a term to refer to as demons and devils and jinn, so on and so forth. In the subterranean planes exist all of the elder gods and goddesses. Because religion has taken over, these old gods and goddesses went underground into the subterranean planes and became the rulers of the underworld or the nether world. So whenever we are studying Pluto, we are tapping into the subterranean or the nether worlds. And because we are tapping into the subterranean planes or the nether worlds, we are tapping into what is called the lands of the dead. So whenever we seek to communicate, once again, Mercury, with what is referred to as the dead, in this particular case, because Pluto is in 5 degrees of Capricorn, which is influenced by Jupiter, we must tap into the energies of Jupiter and Saturn in order to fulfill this contract. Once again, Jupiter represents expansion, whereas Saturn represents compression. When we put both of these ideas together, because we know Jupiter also represents our fortune or destiny, because in the Tarot, Jupiter is known as the wheel of fortune. And Saturn in the Tarot is known as the universe. Pluto is known as the Aeon. In some tarot decks, it is known as the Judgment or the Last Judgment, the Day of Resurrection or the Kiyama. Mercury represents the Magician. So once again, in order for a transformation to occur, in order for that last judgment to take place in our lives, we must go through the wheel of fortune in order to alter our universe. Because this is a science of magic. A magician just understands the science of magic. So in order to produce transformation in our lives, we must understand the science of magic. Which is this high mathematics. It is now the hour of Venus. Magic is just high mathematics. Mathematics that appears to be spiritual due to a lack of understanding, as all magic is mathematical. So we can otherwise say it is advanced mathematics. So because we have the ability to become advanced in our mathematical abilities, which would then make us magicians, those who can harness and control the natural forces. This allows us to fully understand the principles of Pluto, being able to transform anything it touches. In other words, anybody who activates their own magical ability will have no choice but to have a change in their lives, simply by going through the mathematics, simply by understanding the numbers that are occurring all around them. We understand this is a mathematical universe. We understand the language of the universe is mathematical. So the foundation of the universe must be numbers. And if the foundation of the universe is numbers, then all magic must have its foundations or beginnings in what we call mathematics, which is just symbols or codes of the universe. Pluto taps us into the hidden codes of the universe. As we understand, most of the universe is unseen because most of the universe is dark matter and dark energy. So in order for us to understand this dark matter and this dark energy, we must understand the hidden secrets of Pluto, to understand the subterranean and the nether worlds and their influence on the physical world and the spiritual world, as all of these worlds are connected. The high heavens and the low heavens are connected, because what we know as hell or the underworld is, as stated above, simply the heaven for the old gods and goddesses. So simply tapping into hell or the underworld is a way to tap into the dead, to tap into our ancestors that exist in their heaven, which is in the subterranean planes and the nether planes. So the more we understand not just the angelic, not just the word of God, not just what is divine, when we understand the demonic and the devilish, the eldership of hell and the underworld, and how old these principles go back, and how they can tap us into, in this time, in the 21st century, into all the things that have been concealed by magic. It is not simply that we have forgotten our history or our history has been erased. Our history has been veiled by magic, by our own ancestors for us to discover in our own time. So all of these things that we think is missing, or all of this culture that we think has been destroyed or forgotten, is simply awaiting us to present the passcode so that we can unlock these mysteries that can never be deleted. They can never be erased, because they operate just like cloud storage, which is the 4D reality. Meaning, you may have a phone that may just be 32 gigs. However, you may have cloud storage, let's just say that may go up to 50 gigs. In reality, you have 82 gigs. 32 may be physical, and the other 50 may be spiritual, or in the cloud, or 4D. The 32 is 3D, while the 50 is 4D. So although the 50 is not physically with you because it is in the cloud, and the cloud is not physical, you still have access to it. This is how Pluto operates. So the more we understand 4D, the more we understand the underworld and the netherworld. And we simply have to tap into our 4D consciousness so that we can tap into all those extra gigs that is not available to us physically. So we very well may have 32 gigs on the physical plane or the physical body, but we have a whole nother dimension that allows us to access the totality of who we are by going beyond the physical into the nether, which is why the dark side has always been forbidden. Not because you can destroy yourself or destroy your soul, because you just may find yourself and find your soul and rediscover the truth of not only yourself, but also your heritage. So with that, I bear peace. 93.